Hey. Welcome to episode 262 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. It's called Adventure Awaits. And adventure looks so fun in the movies, right? And think of Indiana Jones. It looks, at least to me as a kid, it looked utterly delightful. But what we don't always, or at least I don't always think of when I'm watching a movie, is the obstacles that come into play. That are hard to get around. And if you're anything like me, those obstacles also occur in day-to-day life. Well, we are in luck. I guess is going to have some inspiring things to say about obstacles. Actually, I have a quote here, one of her quotes. She says that there are 10,000 different ways of getting over the same obstacle. If there's 10,000 different ways of getting over the same obstacle, we do indeed have a lot of freedom to grow and create and move forward. With that, let me bring on my guest. But first, this.
Today's guest, Marina Gavryushkina.
Well, welcome back to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast, and welcome to Marina. Hi, Marina.
Hello, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on.
Notice I just said Marina. I was going to allow you to say your last name.
Yeah. My name is Marina Gavryushkina.
So it's a great name. And you had to learn how to spell your last name as a small kid. That sounds challenging.
Dad, I misspelled it many times as a kid. But yeah, and I had to learn it in English and in Russian.
Oh, it's a difference.
It's a different alphabet.
Wow. There's gosh, it's amazing sometimes when I think about other cultures. I miss so much. Like I didn't realize, or maybe I have forgotten that the Russian alphabet is different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So speaking of being a little kid, you lived in Russia until you were 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What do you? Is there anything you remember of daily life in Russia from being that young?
Well, it is quite a different world. I don't remember too much from before I moved to America, but we used to go back to Russia every summer. And so I got to experience being a kid out there. And it's so different. So growing up there in Russia as a kid, you spend a lot of your time outdoors. This was before the internet. This was before everyone just sat around in front of their computers or video games. So my summers in Russia were all about running around in the forest, like playing stupid tag games and hide and seek with my brothers in the woods, just helping with gardening out in the little house that we spent our summers at, and just spending a lot of time outside. Yeah.
So when you went back for the summers, you were in the country?
A little bit of both. So in Russia, it's typical to have an apartment in the city. So my family lives in Moscow, and you would have a summer house, like a country house in the outskirts of the city where you would grow a lot of your own vegetables, fruits, a lot of your own food. It's not just like a summer house for recreation, it's more of like your own personal garden, where you do rely, well, back in the 90s, you would rely a lot on the vegetables that you grew for food year round. So yeah, we went back and forth between the big city and the countryside, which is very different from the suburbs of California.
Would you be in Russia the whole summer?
That's right. Yeah, most of the time it was 2 months, 2.5 months. And I remember as a kid, I was like, again, we have to go back. I want to spend time with my friends in America instead. But now I definitely am glad that I had those experiences growing up.
Did you have family in Russia?
Yes. So I moved when I was 4. My family came from Russia, but it was just my parents and my brothers who moved. The rest of my family, all of my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, cousins, they are still there. They've never moved here. So for us to leave the country and to come to America, we were on our own. Basically, we left everybody behind.
Before we go any further, speaking of your brothers, you actually have a twin brother. What's it like having a twin?
It's kind of fun. My brother, we're fraternal, so not identical. That would have been too very cool. But with Dimitri and I, it was nice because we spent so much time as kids together, and we were just we got to experience going to Russia together as well, spending the 12-hour flight sitting next to each other to get over there as kids.
That's a long flight as a kid. Oh my gosh, that's insane.
I think we drove our parents crazy, but somehow we made it through. Yeah, it's somebody to share share everything with when you're growing up.
Do you remember anything about being 4 years old and then suddenly taking a flight to the United States?
My earliest memories are kind of so it's funny because I remember it being winter time, and the winters in Moscow are very extreme. So we even have photos of back when I was 4 years old before we moved, in this big fluffy coat, just running around the forest in this huge amounts of snow. And then the next memory that I have is that drive from LAX to Los Angeles. And when you're leaving LAX, you have the palm trees lining the sides. So it was such a big difference, a big drastic change of going from the snowstorms of Russia to the palm trees and the sunshine of California. But I remember, my dad picking us up from the airport. And,
I wonder how does a small kid even begin to make sense of okay, I was in winter, I was cold, I got on a plane, and now there's palm tree. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy change, I think, for my parents and for for us as kids. I was placed into like a English as a second language class when I was in school in California. So we had to learn English as well as Russian.
So were you up until age 4? Did you have any English language?
No, nothing.
So what was that like as a kid, coming to a country where you have no idea what people are saying?
Um, I think it's easier when you're a kid because you absorb so much. I think it was almost harder for my parents. My dad knew some English, my mom not so much. But when I was a kid, we spent most of our time with our family speaking in Russian. And then all of the English we got was at school. And so we had to kind of catch up because, yeah, we were placed in kindergarten, first grade. Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, like everybody else was also learning their alphabet at the same time. So we kind of got to, thankfully I came in at a young age. My older brother's 2 years older. He came in I believe second grade was his first grade in America. So I think it was harder for him.
So you know Russian English very well. Remind me what other languages you know.
I speak some French, un petit peu, but I learned it in high school and I used it more when I was living in Europe, but that was already as an adult. But my English is definitely my best, followed by Russian, and then French it's passable.
What is it like basically being able to, I ask this as someone who took Spanish, but I don't really remember much vocab, so I basically think and talk in English with an accent that's called a speech impediment. But you know two languages so well. What's it like to be able to envision life in both languages?
Mm. It's interesting because I also think in English. That is my dominant mental language. Mentally, I think in English, and I have to consciously try to think in Russian. Yeah. So I remember when I would go back to Russia during the summers, like somewhere within 2-3 months of being there, it switches over, and I start to think more and more Russian because that's all I'm hearing, that's all I'm speaking, that's all I'm doing. But living here in the States, it's all in English in my mind.
Well, where the speaking of mine, I had two questions going through my mind. If I had known you at age like 7 to 9 and asked you, Marina, what do you want to, what do you think you want to do when you grow up? What would you have said?
Archaeologist. Yeah, growing up as a kid, I was, fascinated by art, culture. Just my parents took me to a lot of museums when I was a kid, and I watched a lot of movies, and I think it all just got mixed in my head. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid. Yeah, it's inspired, of course, by some Indiana Jones movies that were always so fun to watch. But also, yeah, I just wanted to learn more about the world and about our history.
It is, and I have to give credit to the guy I work with. I didn't think of this, but he sent me a draft of the description for your episode back, and it's a Russian Indiana Jones. What do you think of that terminology?
It's pretty funny. It's interesting when you're actually working in archaeology. The Indiana Jones comparison gets so tired after a while. You're like, no, we're not anything like that. Archaeology is so much, more deep. I don't know, but it's at the same time, we all as archaeologists still make those jokes. We can't avoid it. So we are, it's a little bit of poking fun at ourselves, and it's just fun. I think. But it's true, a little bit of every archaeologist that I've ever known has that adventurous spirit in them. I think it's part of that personality type that gets attracted to that kind of work.
Well, I mean, it sounds neat as a field to be surrounded by people with adventuresome spirits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, before we get more into archaeology, so you went to grade school in Santa Monica and summers in Russia, and then you made a change. Your family moved to Thousand Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
What was that change like?
It was interesting because we spent so long in Santa Monica. We ended up moving when I was 10. So I had already spent 6 years, meeting a lot of new friends, and getting to know, just spending a lot of time with the families in Santa Monica. So all of a sudden we moved to Thousand Oaks, which is in the suburbs, and I had to make all new friends. That was probably the hardest part about it is, okay, well, let's start over again. Let's do this again. And it was also just a very different world. Santa Monica's a big city. It's very chaotic. And in Thousand Oaks is super quiet, super chill, super family oriented. So it was quite welcoming. I think my parents moved there because the schools were highly rated, and they also wanted to get out of the city. So I think overall, looking back at it, it was a good choice.
Speaking of friends, did you also have friends you made in the summers in Russia?
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting because I would only see them once a year, right? Only in the summers. And so my friends in Russia were all kids of my parents' friends. So basically all of my parents' friends had kids at the same time as them. And I felt like the friends that I had in Russia were almost like my cousins. I personally, in my family, I don't have a lot of cousins. So my parents' friends' children were kind of like the cousins I saw once a year. And we would get into a bunch of shenanigans. Yeah. So
did you send letters back and forth too, or does a kid not really do that?
Actually, so this was, I think I mentioned this is in the 90s. So this is before cell phones were common in the hands of kids. So I had no communication with them until I actually went back. We would only see each other in person during summers. So every single year it would be like, we haven't seen each other in a year. They experienced a lot of experiences growing up there. I would have my experiences. And every year, all of us would change a little bit, And, but yeah, we're still friends.
Well, interesting. So you went to college at UC Berkeley and you majored do I head this way? Art history and archaeology.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. I really wanted to go and pursue that, the dream that I had as a kid. Wanted to see if I could make it happen, you know.
Why did you choose to art history along with archaeology?
I won't get too technical, but in America, archaeology falls under the discipline of anthropology. And so the courses at UC Berkeley were mostly focused on anthropology, which is the cultural aspect of archaeology. And I was more interested in going on excavations and digging things. And I was fascinated by ancient Greece and ancient Egypt in particular. That was my focus. And all of those courses were under the art history department. Like so I ended up taking a lot of ancient art courses through art history,
Wow. Yeah.
and which were basically archaeology classes. So I couldn't choose one major. I'm a very, as we had previously talked about, it's hard for me to to stick to one thing, but I choose both. If I can't make a decision, I'll do both. Why not?
Well, I mean that gives you more experiences. Does parkour enter your story about this time, or is that later?
No, that's where I got my start. So as a freshman in college, you just want to experience everything, it was my first time living on my own, and getting to kind of explore different interests. So as a freshman, even the first couple months, I learned about a parkour group that met on the campus once a week. They always met.
Before
Yeah.
we go any further, I realize, would you kind of talk about what parkour is?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but
for granted.
I mean, you started talking, and then in my mind, I'm like, people might not know what this is. So.
True, parkour. It's been recently popularized because it does show up in movies these days. I think Casino Royale had a very well-known scene of James Bond running through and doing parkour. But parkour at its core is getting from point A to point B in nowadays the most creative way possible. Not always the fastest. If you throw a flip in there, it slows you down a little bit. But parkour is all about moving through your environment in a creative and inventive way, in a very free way. There's a lot of concepts associated with parkour, freedom of movement, not constraining yourself to a specific way of walking down the street, for example, not just taking the sidewalk, but maybe jumping over the fence or walking along the fence instead of around it. It's all about, parkour is all about looking at the environment around you and seeing it as an opportunity to move freely wherever it is you want to move, and not be constrained by typical physical boundaries, physical barriers. This is a bit of a long-winded explanation of parkour, but I hope that made sense.
Can you give like an example of a park you were recently somewhere where you did parkour and a little bit of what you did?
Sure. Yeah. So typically when you're training, when you're practicing parkour, you look for environments where there's a lot of interesting obstacles to to move around in. So this past weekend, I went to a local train station because the train station has a lot of ramps and rails, and the platform's kind of raised above the parking lot. There's like kind of a terracing effect of that train station. And that was a great spot to practice jumping from rail to rail, or from one level to the next, and doing different moves using that space. We joke that we like ADA compliance is like the greatest thing ever for parkour, because everywhere has ramps now, and the ramps are so much fun to like jump around. So, it's at least here in Los Angeles, we don't, like, at least the groups that I'm part of, we don't jump from building to building, which is the stereotype in parkour. It's like what brings in a lot of views on videos is people jumping from building to building with this huge gap in the middle. And the reality is not that. The reality is more of like, seeing like a space that maybe some people would just like walk up the stairs. But instead there's like 10 ways of getting up those stairs. You just have to get creative.
So it occurs to me that for a lot of us, we try to actively avoid obstacles, but in parkour, you like actively look for obstacles.
It's true. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I mean, especially fences, walls, boundaries. We don't see them as boundaries, which is, you have to be very particular about the spaces you train in, because you don't want to be jumping on private property, for example. But walls in general, just they're just very inviting. I don't know, this sounds kind of crazy, but whenever I see a wall, I'm just thinking like, oh, like what vault would I do over this? Like, what is the best way of getting over this wall? Like, it makes practicing parkour makes you see the world in a very different way.
Practicing parkour makes you see the world in a very different way. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. We call it parkour vision.
Parkour
It's
vision.
it's when you just don't see the built environment the same way anymore. Like, yeah, as I mentioned before, walking past a staircase with a lot of rails, or like like a series of planters next to each other, instead of like just walking past, or moving around the planters, or moving up the stairs in a normal way. Once you have that parkour vision, you start seeing the possibilities. You start seeing like, oh, well, those planters are close enough together. I bet I could jump from one to the other. And or, oh, it would be cool to do this move. Oh, and then I could, move, change it and flow through, like, you see, it's a very like different way of looking at the world. And if you're, sometimes it does make you look a little nuts, because you're standing there staring very intently at a planter. But it's just, yeah, you see the world differently.
So you know, you not only see things differently, but then it sounds like you act on what you see in a unique way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the most fun, and the thing that is the most freeing about parkour is flowing through that environment, jumping from obstacle to obstacle, and trying to make it as smooth as possible. And when you get into like the flow of parkour, you feel like you could get over anything in your way, and you want more. Like the more challenging, the better. And just like there's also like 1,000 ways to get over a certain wall, a certain obstacle, a certain barrier in your way, and you want to try all of them. Like, okay, I tried this jump. Let's try a different jump and see what that feels like. And does that, and see what works best, what speaks to you at the time. And, just trying to do different combinations and different moves. And it's just a very creative and exhilarating and kind of just like a very satisfying thing when you have a challenge, when you have a wall in front of you that is a little too high, and you keep trying to like wall run it, and slowly, like it is a sport, slowly you build up the strength and the technique to be able to get over higher walls or jump bigger gaps, and do different kinds of jumps and different kinds of flips that you have been training for months. I think it's a very physically challenging, but also extremely rewarding sport to be part of.
I suppose it was built up not only your strength, but also how does building your confidence play into parkour?
Oh, it is everything. So I call it a trifecta. Um, to be able to do a move in parkour, you need to have the strength, you need to know the technique, and most importantly, you need to have the confidence to do it. The mental aspect of parkour is everything, because you're constantly, every jump you do, you're fighting through your innate human fear of falling. And so that confidence takes a really long time to build up. I was just talking to somebody who just joined parkour recently, and we were talking about this, and I was trying to give her some advice on how do you build up that confidence. And the confidence comes from doing. Like you can
That
only,
confidence comes from doing.
it really does, because you don't know that you're capable of something until you've done it. It's just, you could envision yourself doing it all you want, but until you make that leap, you try that jump and you make it, you're always going to have that fear. So building up confidence in parkour means starting slow and knowing what your limits are, and then really incrementally pushing those limits. So it's also helps to have friends. It helps to know people who are at a similar level, and if you see somebody that you know you're at a similar level to, if you see them do something cool, something that you want to be able to do, you could say like, oh, if that person can do it, I can do it. And you feed off each other's energy. That helps as well to build confidence.
It sounds like from what you're saying that part of building confidence is knowing how to take the next practice step and not like trying to, when you're just starting off, not trying to leap between two buildings. How do you determine the increments?
Mm,
How
a
do
lot.
you determine how to expand what you're doing in a safer way?
It's a lot of repetition. It is a lot of training. A lot of the videos that you see of somebody doing a very big jump, for example, or a huge flip or a huge move, I guarantee you that person has tried that flip 1,000 times before they filmed it.
Mm.
It all comes down to preparation and putting the work in. Like there are parkour gyms out there. There's a few in Los Angeles where you can go and take classes, or there's an open gym where people could go in and train moves in a safer environment with padding. on a trampoline, for example, on a foam pit. There's a lot that goes on in the background. It's not just like, just going for it.
One more question on this. How have you cultivated the patience for all the training, the for the 1,000 times to learn to do the flip?
I wouldn't I just have fun. Even if I'm just training like a simple jump from one obstacle to the next. Like the feeling that it gives you of being in motion, of making that jump, of trying that flip. It's just fun. Honestly, parkour, I think it attracts a lot of people who never wanted to grow up. And it's a lot of play. It's inviting a lot of play into your life. Just being back in the mindset of being a kid, and just, floor is lava. Let's try this challenge where floor is lava. You find ways to train that are just very enjoyable and very fun. Yeah, and it's just a great time.
So you started parkour as a freshman in college.
Mhm.
And speaking of obstacles, that summer you had an internship in the desert of Nevada. What was that like?
Yeah. So part of my archaeology journey was internships at the U.S. Forest Service in Nevada during the summers, and I was stationed in the middle of nowhere in the desert of Nevada near Ely, Nevada. It's 300 miles away from anywhere. And my job was survey. So I was hiking across the mountains every day and looking for evidence of archaeological sites. So I was looking for arrowheads on the ground. I was looking for evidence of possible buildings. I was mapping out old gold mining towns. That was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
And just it really spoke to my original Indiana Jones fantasies as a kid, because it was like the kind of crazy adventure that you dream about as a kid, where you're just dropped off in the middle of nowhere and just go and look for cool stuff on the ground. And it was basically that. It was that feeling of discovery that archaeology really inspires in people. When you're walking in the middle of nowhere on a mountainside in the Nevada desert, and you just come across like a whole unbroken arrowhead that's been laying there for thousands of years.
Wow.
It's a really cool feeling that I don't think other professions get, at least not that I've experienced. Yeah, it was very, very cool. Very
cool. You had parkour during the year at Berkley? Did parkour enter into? Did that experience of parkour change how you experienced that first summer in Nevada at all?
A little bit. I think that training parkour was, first of all, great for my physical in strength and endurance that I needed to hike across the mountains. But it also, there was no walls to jump over, but there were boulders that I needed to climb. There was one time when I was alone and I was surveying, and I came across a wild cow, or a cow that was just in the middle of nowhere, clearly didn't belong to anybody. and I was scared because it had big horns, and I was like, "Oh, this is not going to end up well."
I mean,
So I had to. So the way that
that's a male. That's a bull.
It was a yeah. It was a bull. So the only way that I thought to escape was to go up the side of the mountain. So I think my parkour experience helped with that because it was a bit of a climb. Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Wow. But it's so good in the moment to have a tool to know what the heck to do. Wow. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this amazes me because we've been talking about all these colorful parts of your life. But after college, you got a job as an accountant.
Yes.
Did your experiences of parkour and archaeology help you at all as an accountant? In the mindset at all, or anything like that?
In the mindset, I don't know. I don't think so. But I will say that it was another challenge. You know, my background in my academic experience was archaeology. It had nothing to do with numbers or math. So starting at an accounting department, I had to learn a lot that I didn't go to school for. And that was a challenge for me because I had to learn the principles of accounting, a lot about the financial world, what is deferred revenue. And it was more of like, okay, I'm doing this now. I'm going to give it my all and see where it takes me. Because I mentioned this before to you, but as it's difficult to make a career as an archaeologist. And when you come out of your undergrad with a lot of student loans, you need you need a stable profession. So for me, accounting was a very practical choice. And I approached it the same way that I approach parkour and my other in archaeology. It's like, this is a challenge that I'm going to figure out, and I'm gonna be better for it.
This is a challenge I'm going to figure out, and I'm going to be better for it. Instead of, why me? Why do I have to do this? And blah, blah. This is a challenge I'm going to figure out. I'm going to be better for it. Then at a certain point, you through a temp agency, you got a job at J. Nolan. What is J. Nolan, and how did you come to be working there?
Yeah, so this is part of my exploration of different career paths. So archaeology was not working out after graduating, and so I was trying a lot of different jobs. I worked as a cake decorator, I worked as a Uber driver, all sorts of things. And J. Nolan, I came to through a temp agency because I needed something stable, and I was like, all right, let's see where it goes. And I was brought in during an audit of the company, and the finance director really enjoyed working with me. I managed to make some kind of impression, right? And so I was hired into J. Nolan's financial department as one of the accountants. And of course, that was a experience that I got because of my prior experience as an accountant after graduating. But okay, maybe I should explain what J. Nolan does.
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. Sure. So Jane Nolan Community Services is a nonprofit. We provide services to individuals with autism and other developmental and intellectual disabilities. It's a service provider based in California. We have offices all across the state, serving over 500 different people in different like aspects of their lives. The kind of the nice the great part about Jane Nolan is it's very individualized. So all the services are is basically asking whoever that we're supporting, what do you want with your life? And let's figure out how we're going to get you there. So we, like, our CEO jokes that we have like 500 different programs because we serve 500 different people. That's, yeah, it's so yeah, it's a support for people with disabilities, but it goes far beyond that, in my opinion.
Thanks for talking about that. Then at a certain point, you're like, oh, what do I want to do? I know I want to go to Europe.
Yeah. I could never quench that adventurous side of me. I always have that pull to do something a little bit out of the norm. And so this was before I joined Jane Nolan, but after my accounting, I had wanted to just go and have an adventure. Accounting, it's great and all, but like that pull. So I did it was like a 4-month backpacking trip around Europe where I participated in different workaway opportunities. So I went from country to country and I helped a family with their small business for a couple weeks at a time. So during that trip, I helped a family run an AirBnB in the Italian Alps. I helped helped clean rooms for a bed and breakfast in a chateau in France. I was helping the groundskeeper keep up the garden in at a property of a mansion in Scotland. I was helping with like cutting vines at a vineyard in the south of France. I just wanted to kind of experience it all. So I did.
And that really sounds like another Indiana Jones chapter in your life. I mean, wow.
Absolutely. I think I visited like 12 countries.
I didn't remember you had gone to Europe twice. So that was the first time you visited 12 countries in 4 months. Sounds grand. And then later on, you were working at Jane Nolan, and you're like, I would like to get more education in Europe. What was that like?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed my time in Europe. And I also wanted to try to get back into archaeology because I still had a passion for it. And at the time I was working for Jane Nolan and as a full-time in the accounting department. And I wanted to go back and pursue my master's for archaeology. There are a few universities in Europe that really specialized in what I wanted to do, which was learning to do more mapping and 3D modeling of archaeological excavations. And so I applied to a couple universities out there, and I ended up getting into a master's program with a scholarship to Leiden University in the Netherlands. So I had this opportunity, this scholarship, and I had talked to my boss in Jane Nolan about this, and I told them that I really did enjoy working for the company, and they were flexible enough and they liked me as an employee. I don't think they wanted to let me go, but I had arranged to work remotely while I did the master's for them, because I was going to need some extra money while I was there. It's expensive, but yeah, and they were very accommodating for that. So I ended up going to pursue my master's in the Netherlands while continuing to work on special projects outside of the finance department for J. Nolan. So setting up their social media accounts, starting to work on fundraising, starting to do a lot of online tasks that I could do remotely part-time. And so I ended up going back to Europe and staying for 7 years.
Wow. And this is such an example of moving along an obstacle. You tell your employer in Southern California, hey, I'm moving to Europe to pursue a master's. I mean, in a traditional sense of space and time, it seems like, oh, we'll miss you. Bye. But you both created a way for you to do both. To go yes and.
Yeah. And we're both better for it. I think it worked out on both sides because I got, I think having that openness with your employer and having a good enough relationship to be able to make that negotiation, it worked out. I think one of the things that I wish people would do more of is you don't know until you ask. And sure, the answer might be no, but it might not be, you might come to an agreement that works for both of you.
And now, not only did you have the job and get to benefit J. Nolan while you were in Europe, now you're presently working at J. Nolan.
Yeah, I'm still there. So I've been with J. Nolan now for 10 years. I kind of live and breathe the mission at this point. So I went back to school for archaeology. I got my master's and I pursued a PhD as well, which I did for a few years, but came to the realization that the academic part of it and like the PhD, that being a professor was not what I really enjoyed about it. I enjoyed the adventure. I enjoyed the work, the survey, the digging. But writing papers, I could do without.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons why I didn't end up pursuing it. But at the time when I was thinking about quitting the PhD, I was talking about this with my boss, and she invited me back to work full time at J. Nolan. And I've been with the company at the time for over 7 years, and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed this. This is. When it feels right, it feels right. And I had absolutely no hesitation to take her up on the offer. So now I am more focused on the marketing and development in the organization. I am the manager of communications and development. That's my official title. And I get to work on a lot of different projects for J. Nolan that I've been enjoying very, very much.
That's so neat and talk about a win-win. It's a win for you and a win for J. Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. It's I don't regret it at all. Definitely not. I think it's I found quite a lot of belonging at the company.
A lot of what?
Belonging.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Marina, a lot of people watching, and I myself from time to time time we feel stuck and we feel there's obstacles in front of us that we can't get past. What of encouragement would you give us?
Mm. Well, I would say you never know until you try, right? You just have to keep on trying, and trying different things. I think my story's kind of a good example of trying a lot in a lot of different areas of my life, trying archaeology, leaving archaeology, coming back to it, trying different career paths. Um, it's all trial and error, honestly. And
Mm,
you have to be not afraid of, I guess, what you would call failure. I wouldn't call it failure. I would call it feedback.
mm,
You can't be afraid to make any mistakes or feel like you're going down the wrong path, because as long as you're trying and as long as you're trying new things, then it will help you to learn what the next step is and you'll get there. I think one of the biggest challenges that especially young people face these days is um, we are expected to know what we want right after high school. We go into college with a specific major, and there's statistics out, don't quote me on this, but I think there's statistics out there where 70% of people are now working in a field that has nothing to do with what degree they got from college, from major they graduated in. Like, you just have to experiment and keep trying, seeking out what works for you. um, that's all I could really say, is like, yeah, just if something's not working, try something else. And if that's not working, just keep going. And sooner or later, you'll find a place where you belong.
mm. And sooner or later, you'll find a place where you belong. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Marina, I ask all my guests this question. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
Ooh, it means falling down a lot, but getting up and keep going. It means just showing up, and anything that you do, you like decide to do, just do your best at it. If you're anything worth doing is worth doing, like putting your effort into. It's Yeah, it's all about like making sure you just keep going. Yeah.
Last question. So, um, the videos people would see a parkour probably wouldn't show all the mistakes, all the falling down, all the behind the scenes. How do we prepare ourselves to do the behind the scenes tough work, the day in and day out?
Mhm. You have to keep that vision in mind of, picture what what success is going to look like. I mean, there's nothing wrong with fantasizing about being your perfect best,
Mm,
and then constantly striving towards that. And
mm,
um, yeah, I mean, like envisioning what you dream of being, and just aiming towards that as much as you can. Yeah, I guess coming back to the parkour metaphor of, I could see myself doing that flip in my mind, and it will look totally awesome. Now let's see, what are the steps I need to take to get to that point. How many times do I have to do this backflip before I feel confident? in filming it.
And you might not know the answer at all until you do backflip after backflip.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing an amazing story, an amazing adventure with us, and would you please? I'm going to wrap up here, but would you please stay on just for a sec? I just need to make sure everything uploads, okay?
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in to this episode of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I don't know about you, but talking to Marina makes me want to try things I've been thinking that I can't do, and just try and see, like maybe I can do them. Maybe I can do them with practice. Talking to Marina makes me want to explore. What thoughts does this conversation bring up for you? Please comment if you want, or share them with friends, or write them down. In any case, you are the best. You're the one and only of you in this world. Thanks for being you. Until next time, have a great day. And remember to be awkwardly awesome. I know I will.